So happy everyone is here today. What an honor. I'm Andrew Dalton, and I'm the director of the Adams County Historical Society and the producer of our new Gettysburg Film Festival. I want to start by thanking the many exceptional people who are here today, too many to name. Without you, this festival could not have been put together. In particular, I'd like to take a moment to recognize our leadership sponsors who are here today, Cliff Bream and Julie St. John, Monica Oss and Jay Mackey, and Elsie Morey. Please help me and give them a round of applause. Also, I'd like to thank our phenomenal partners. This has been a real team effort to put together this festival, including Gettysburg College. President Giuliano is here. If we could give him a round of applause. The Better Angels Society, Catherine is here. A round of applause for them. And the American Battlefield Trust, Gary Edelman and Chris White are here today. Thank you for everything. And many other organizations. The Gettysburg Foundation, David Malgi is here, the president. We can give him a round of applause. And I told you there were a lot of partners involved. Especially the staff of the Adams County Historical Society. I know I'm biased, but I just want to thank our remarkable team that's been working for many months to put this weekend together. Denise Eberspeaker, Abby Hoffman, Michaela Schaefer, Mary Procopio, Maria Lynn, Ellen Mann, Tim Smith. I hope I got everybody. Thank you all so much for all your hard work. Of course, this festival would not have been possible without the unceasing support and friendship of Ken Burns. His impact on Gettysburg has been and continues to be felt by generations of Americans. It's such an honor to have Ken back at our museum just a year after he cut the ribbon just downstairs. And since that weekend, we've welcomed more than 40,000 visitors, many of them children, which I'm very happy about every time I see kids enjoying the history and the stories that we've put together. And I'll never forget Ken's early support for our project, which was critical in raising awareness and funding at a time when few believed that this was possible. So thank you so much to Ken Burns. And on a personal note, we've, working on this project, it's been a great honor. And I grew up here in Gettysburg, like many of you, and discovered my passion for history early on. I remember spending Sunday afternoons with my dad watching both Ken's Civil War series and Martin's phenomenal performance in the movie Gettysburg. Both were on repeat in our house. And I lost my dad a few years ago, but thanks to both of you, I still have those really wonderful memories. So thank you for that. And just to stand here today among some of the most accomplished actors, filmmakers, authors, and historians in the United States, it's beyond what I ever could have imagined as a child. But I'm here today because I love my hometown, Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. This is a remarkable place that offers so much to Americans. It reminds us of our darkest moment, but also of the recovery and rebirth that followed. It's a guiding light in our struggle to overcome the challenges that today and tomorrow will bring. I hope this festival will continue growing in the years ahead, and I hope that millions more Americans will come here to reflect on the stories that define us and the great films that they've inspired. Maybe then we can start to focus less on our differences and disagreements and more on what brings us together. So thank you very much for allowing me this opportunity to speak for a few minutes. I'd like to introduce my friend and colleague, the director of the Gettysburg Film Festival, Jake Boritt.
Thank you so much. So we've had an interesting morning. Ken can tell you about it. He was with President Obama in South Carolina, 36 hours of travel, got back late last night, got Willa down here and hit traffic and then an earthquake, and hopefully the sun doesn't get blotted out because that can't happen, right? So we're already a little behind schedule, so I'm just going to say Ken Burns, the Civil War, 40 million viewers, and from there, Gettysburg was transformed. He's been a friend before, but certainly ever since, and extremely generous with his schedule and all that he's got going on to come back again, barely a year later. And so thank you, Ken. Thank you, Willa. Thank you, Joe, and a lot of Ken's staff that isn't here. It was all made possible. And of course, all the people Andrew thanked, all of the backers and the staff here at the Historical Society, the college, all of you. It's a big team effort to do this in our town. And thank you so much. So without further ado,
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm so glad to be back. For a while this morning, it didn't look like we'd get here in time, and so happy to see so many people that I know. I'm particularly happy that Jay and Molly here, Jay Unger and Molly Mason, I think that the writers here, Jeff might agree, filmmakers certainly, I think when all art form dies and hopefully goes to heaven, it wants and aspires to be music. It's the art of the invisible. The rest of the stuff that we do on the printed page or on the screen is visible, but there's something incredibly powerful and instantaneous about music. And I think one of the main reasons why the series that we made is so remembered is for the music. And it's so interesting that the thing that it's remembered most for is the music that wasn't of the Civil War. Every piece of music was of the period, except for one piece, Jay's remarkable Ashokan Farewell, which is this remarkable Scotch-Irish lament, as beautiful a piece of music as I've ever heard, written by a Jewish kid from the Bronx, which is, one of the reasons, Andrew, we look to sort of get together. Shelby Foote said an interesting thing. He was not making it up, but when we talked about the Civil War, and Shelby had said that America was this clear river that ran into a bloody lake and ran out clear again, at least so far. There's lots of shadows in those stories. But he did point out a grammatical change, which is that when we were referring to the country before the Civil War, we said the United States are. We saw ourselves as a collection of states. In fact, when Robert E. Lee, General, was offered the head of the Union Army, he turned it down. He said, "I cannot raise my sword against my country," by which he meant Virginia. That was what it was. After the Civil War, we said the United States is, which is actually ungrammatical. These people is a good-looking group of people. Everybody would send me back to school. But we say the United States is because of what happened during those 4 years in which we tore ourselves in two in order to figure out how we could be actually one again and become a one thing. And in some ways, the series that we made was looking at the creation of that one thing, as tentative and as fragile as as it appears to us now. But I think that when we are here, our attention is focused so intensely on the greatest battle, obviously the biggest battle, the most terrible battle in North America, that happens here in this beautiful rolling countryside of orchards, not dissimilar to the way it was back then. Almost 200,000 combatants and people. We call it a civil war. There's only 2 civilian deaths, right? And that's not a civil war. It's a sectional war. It's North against South. And so we're not out to kill civilians. We're out to prove a point, in this case, about the survival of the Union, and more importantly, making good on the original promise, which was also re-upped here. So we have the greatest battle in which we have 50,000 casualties, more than 5,000 dead. The devastation is complete, but over 3 days, July 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, 1863, it's really the turning point of the war. And then, because this little village is flooded with dead people, they have to create a cemetery, and asked the noted orator of the day, Edward Everett, to come and give his remarks in a 2-hour speech. He was famous for it. People would listen for 2 hours to the beauty of these constructed things, and the president was asked, almost as an afterthought, to come and add what was called a few appropriate remarks. And as everyone knows here, he spoke for 2 minutes, and he basically gave the 2.0 that we're still, it's our operating system now. If the Declaration was 1.0, written by a Southerner, a Virginian, who could distill a century of Enlightenment thinking into the idea that all men are created equal, and yet he owned hundreds of human beings in his lifetime and didn't see the contradiction or the hypocrisy, or more important, see fit to free any of those people in his lifetime, then Lincoln comes here and says, look, we really do mean this. And we have plowed on for better and for worse since that time. And so it makes this tiny, still tiny town so central to our identity. Everything, it seemed, before led up to the Civil War, and everything since has issued from it. And there's no more important place that the Civil War took place than here. We're now working on a big series on the history of the American Revolution. There are no photographs or newsreels, and so if you have any from the Revolutionary period, please see me after the lunch. It makes our job incredibly complicated. But what's so interesting is that we tend to think of this, we reduce it to sort of taxation and representation as the causes. It's really about Indian land, number one. Taxation and representation are, of course, central to particularly the seaboard folks, but people are plowing in from Europe, literally coming over from Wales and from Scotland and from Ireland and from Germany and from England. They want a piece of land. Their family has worked someone else's land for 1,000 years. There's no memory, no muscle memory of anything other than working somebody else's land. And all of a sudden, there may be land here. And it's across the Appalachians, and they want it. And the settlers are coming into the big cities up north, and then they're arraying down. And they're coming down the Great Wagon Road. And this is the stop of the Great Wagon Road. This place is sending people on to Winchester, Virginia, and on down into the South to spread out. The British have won this great empire in the French and Indian War, and they can't pay for it. That's why taxation and representation comes in. But they also say, we can't defend you either, so you can't cross the Appalachians. And they go, oh yeah? Now, what gets lost in this story, and all of our sense of pride about the land, is that at best we're talking 8 or 9 or 10 generations. The people who were here before, about 650 generations, and didn't have the sense of ownership. They had a sense of stewardship, which is a different kind of conception. And so we look at this processes that take place here, and we also have to remember that we have to bring in lots of other stories. Jake was just reminding me that the word slavery didn't enter this battlefield until 2021. Is that correct? 2021 is the first time the word slavery entered the official stuff. If you go back to the articles of secession that South Carolina passed instantly after Lincoln's election, they don't mention states' rights, they don't mention nullification, they don't mention interposition, they mention slavery many, many times. And I think that we have to be super careful as we're drawn to the epic story of this book that we don't forget why it happened and the work that still has to be done. So I think coming here for me, bringing my family, I brought my youngest daughter, Willa, here today. Her older sisters have climbed over the rocks at Little Round Top, which we're going to do, is a way to renew a commitment to what happened here. We can never forget what they did here. But we also have to recommit ourselves to the values that were articulated by our 16th president when he came on November 19th of that same 1863 to essentially rewrite our creed. So I'm glad to be here, and let's reinvigorate that and make sure it includes everybody. Thank you.